Hey, what's up, everybody? I want to welcome you to another episode of the Dreamerspro Daily Recap, where we give you a recap of all of the hot topics that we covered that day. You can catch them in their long format and also catch it fully streaming for free on Apple Podcasts. But yesterday, I came across a segment from Gil's Arena. And on the panel, it was Rashard McCants, Gilbert Arenas, Brandon Jennings, Kenyon Martin's son, I think KJ Martin, I think is his name. And then I think that might have been the full panel. If I'm missing someone, then I apologize. So the topic they were discussing was, what are the expectations for Bronny, right? And it was like a long segment, like a 25-minute segment. And during this conversation, everybody's weighing in. But I think Rashard McCants kicked it off by saying, are there like any expectations on Bronny or something like that, right? And the minute he threw out the question, it was like a hot potato. It was like a hot potato. Everybody's like, I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. You know? I don't know. Do we know? I don't know. I'm like, yo, just answer the question. Like, when it comes to talking about every other thing, everybody be having answers. All of a sudden we ask this question. Nobody knows what to say, right? So they're kind of going back and forth. Now, in the midst of all of this happening, Brandon Jennings is sitting there in the middle of all of them, right? And he just ice grilling everybody. He looked tight. He just looks angry, and he's listening to them. And everybody's going back and forth saying this thing, saying that thing, saying this thing. Gilbert Arenas over there twerking it up, talking about, he doesn't understand where all the hate is coming from, what's causing. I'm like, you don't know. Okay. You don't know where it's coming from. All right. So we had that going on there, and then it was going back and forth. And then at one point in the conversation, Brandon Jennings just freaking snaps. He just snaps. In the middle of it, he was like, nah, F that, man. F that. Straight up. If you playing like trash, you trash. Like, he just started going on Bronny. And I thought, I was like, yo, bro, it was hilarious. So what we want to do now is we want to play exactly what Brandon Jennings had to say to the panel. I want y'all to listen to it because it was actually funny. Matter of fact, we could probably pull up a still of his face, how he was looking, because he was not laughing. We won't play that for you now. We're going to come back and react to it. Take a listen to him here.
I got a question. So
right? Like, what?
So are you only agreeing with this because you was a second round pick?
I was second too. I was second. What?
So I'm just saying, like,
you being biased?
What I'm saying is,
I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to figure out. I it's cool and all, but what I'm saying is, so what is your problem with what the media is saying and how they're viewing it?
Because
is it because he's LeBron James' son, and because everybody else is in that position? I'm speaking for myself too, because if I have kids, am I gonna feel this way, or I'm gonna just tell that young you ain't like that? So
you ain't like that.
But no.
I'm just trying to figure out
the problem is this.
That's what you say now.
No, the problem is this.
I don't care. You ain't good enough.
Good enough to do
I don't
what?
care if it's my son or not. Don't put your ass out there if you ain't ready.
What is expected from who was your second round?
That sounds.
Who was the second round pick in your draft? Who was the second round pick on your team?
And watch the legend and king get old. Listen, I don't give a
sounds really good.
I don't give a fuck about that.
Who was the second round pick? What pressure was it?
There was no pressure.
I'm just saying in general. I'm just saying in general. I'm just saying in general, man. Y'all just making excuses, bro. Making excuses. But you just making excuses.
If there was so much expectation.
If my son ain't ready, he ain't ready.
If there was so much expectation on the second round pick, then the mother have been the second round pick.
Don't come into my lane.
Nah, because if you fall to the second round,
Gil, you fall to the second round and you're projected first round.
Go do some art, some
your
clothes.
Your pressure comes from proving that you deserve to be a first round.
Who?
Go out there and embarrass me.
Name a player.
Embarrass us.
You're crucifying the 55th pick for playing like a 55th pick.
No,
it's not
about.
You're a weak.
I don't care about. Do you know why they're crucifying? Because of who his dad is. Is what I'm saying. We know what's coming.
No.
I don't care why.
Because it's easy content.
No,
it's easy content. You know damn well.
Because you asked for it.
Damn well.
You asked for
Bronny
this.
James is not going to score 20 in the summer league game. You know it's easy picking. Then that means you're weak.
Why is he not going to do that? Why he wouldn't?
Because no second round pick.
You're making it easy. You're making it easy for me to pick on your ass.
Yeah.
You're making it easy.
He's a 50.
He's a 50. I don't like it.
Yeah.
So of course I'm not gonna like it.
Why can't you make,
If he was the first,
make it easy.
Why can't you get 20 points?
What was the most points you scored in a summer league game?
So you heard what he had to say, right? He wasn't having any of it. He wasn't going for it. Brandon Jennings' position was like, yo, look, if my son, and he used those words, if my son isn't good enough to play ball like at that level, I'm gonna let you know. Right. And then, of course, Kenyon Martin, who was there with his son, he was like, it's easier said than done. Easier said than done. What I think he was speaking to was the fact that he's a father. He's there. It's not as easy as you think. It's easier, but probably said. But when you're the father and you actually have to break that kind of news to your kids, it's not as easy. Right. But he was like, nah. He was like, you're not going to go out there and be embarrassing us, embarrassing my name. Go sit down. And all. So I thought that was pretty funny. And then they got to another point in the conversation. We're like, so what are the expectations for Bronny? What are the expectations for him? And then Gilbert Arenas stood up and started clapping, right? And he was basically saying that Bronny should be basically the cheerleader. He should be high-fiving everybody and just giving everybody those positive vibes and all of that stuff, right? And then they got to another part where they were saying, where do all of these expectations come from? Now, Gil on the one hand was saying, look, this is a 55th pick. This is a 55th pick. Why are we heaping all of this expectation on him? Rashard McCann early in the conversation was like, there was always going to be pressure on him because of who his father was. Because of his father, there would be some level of pressure, right? And to a certain extent, there is some truth to that, right? There is some truth to that. I'm a huge Formula One fan. Michael Schumacher, who has 7 world championships, tied with Lewis Hamilton. His son, Mick Schumacher, I think, was supposed to... No, he first started driving with Haas, the race team. And his name, when you hear Schumacher, like, you're going to pay attention to the name. But there was under pressure. He was under some level of pressure because your dad was a 7-time world champion. So ultimately, whether you like it or not, it's going to follow you. You're going to have to deal with bearing that name, right? Ultimately, I think he only drove for them 1 or 2 seasons, and then he became, I think, a backup driver for Mercedes or whatever. The point I'm bringing up is Mick Schumacher, Bronny James, they're similar situations, kind of. Obviously, how they got into their various sports a little bit different. But the point I'm making is they have very famous, well-accomplished fathers in their respective professions, right? So there was going to be some expectations. To me, look, the thing is very simple. It's very simple. Why is Bronny receiving the energy that he's receiving? Before we answer the question, we have to ask, what energy are we talking about? What energy are we talking about? Because what I've noticed is that there are people out there trying to spin this thing into something else. The facts are the following. The media, big media, is promoting Bronny left and right. They're promoting him on social media pages. That's all they want to talk about on big networks. And it's usually in a very positive light. In certain cases, and they're rare occurrences, you may see people on television give you an honest take on Bronny. But for the most part, on ESPN, FS1, and all of those networks, they just up there twerking it up, basically. Basically, that's what they're doing. And then you have some bigger creators in the independent space that may be former athletes and all of them. And for the vast majority of them, not really any of them want to really cut it down the line. But then you have another group, which is the independent creators, and then you have the fans at large. And those groups of people are giving you varying opinions. There's some people are like, give him some more time. And there's some people are like, nah, son is not nice. He's not any good, right? But when they say hate and all of that stuff, they're speaking about that group. And I think that what they're trying to do is basically silence that group and say, well, y'all are haters. When the other group is like, well, y'all keep promoting this kid, this guy, this young man. Y'all are saying this and saying that, but we're not seeing the results, right? We're not seeing the results. So somebody has to state the obvious here. Personally, I think the pressure came from the media constantly promoting him as if he was a number 1 pick. His father, I keep going back to this point, LeBron fans want to skirt the issue. His father, for basically saying on multiple occasions, 1, he could play on the Lakers right now, and 2, he lightweight better than some of the players playing in the NBA right now. He's watching League Pass. That's what he said. So when you have LeBron James basically saying this kid is good enough to go, You're giving them your stamp of approval. So people are going to be like, all right, let's see. And of course, there are going to be people that are not supporters of LeBron that are going to be critical of LeBron, of course. But that's not a LeBron thing. That's the part I'm missing in all of this. LeBron fans are trying to make it seem like they're the only ones that experience. It happens to everybody. As a matter of fact, I can see it happening. I see it happening to Jordan. Well, Jordan's kids were never good enough to make it to the NBA. They're doing it there too, and it happens to famous people. You're not gonna. Everybody doesn't have fans. Like, what are we dealing with here? So, well, as you guys know, LeBron has a lot of followers and media that support him. A lot of players that support him, but there are some players that are not fans of LeBron James. And one of those players in particular is Enes Kanter. Now, if you guys know, Enes Kanter was a former NBA player. He used to play with the New York Knicks. He has some pretty strong views on various issues. There have even been times when him and LeBron have kind of gotten into little physical scuffles here and there on the basketball court. So he is not a fan of LeBron whatsoever, right? So this morning I was doing some research and I came across an article here this morning from fadeawayworld.net. And the article essentially had the headline which said, Enes Kanter calls LeBron James the dictator of the NBA. The dictator of the NBA. And I was like, well, those are pretty strong comments, but I'm like, I'm very curious to hear why Enes Kanter will call him that, because I personally have my views on LeBron and how he tries to control the media, and I'm not the only one. Stephen A. Smith and others have their views. But I was very interested to see why Enes Kanter would decide to call LeBron James the dictator of the NBA. So let me get into what the article had to say here. It continues on. Former NBA center Enes Kanter has once again voiced his strong opinions about LeBron James, this time launching a scathing attack on the superstar by labeling him the dictator of the NBA. In an interview with Outkick.com, Kanter expressed his belief that LeBron wields an excessive amount of control over the league, influencing both media narratives and team dynamics. He might be a good dude, but he's not good enough to play in the NBA. The reason he got drafted is because of LeBron. The reason JJ Redick is the coach is because of LeBron. No other player wants to go play with LeBron. When the Lakers season fails, LeBron tries to find a player to blame, and he blamed the whole season on Russell Westbrook. So he's not a good teammate. Obviously, he runs the media and tries to control this narrative. But when you actually know and have a conversation inside of the NBA and its players, nobody wants to play with him. When I see a dictator, I know it. LeBron is literally the dictator of the NBA. He controls the media. He controls his narrative. If you go against his agenda, you get traded. Everybody knows it. The former center who spent 13 seasons in the NBA claimed that many players shared his view, but are hesitant to speak out. He specifically criticized the selection of LeBron's son Bronny James by the Los Angeles Lakers in the draft, suggesting that nepotism played a role. The article then said Kanter also took aim at the Lakers' new head coach JJ Redick, implying that his appointment was influenced by his relationship with LeBron. This assertion aligns with Kanter's broader critique that LeBron uses his influence to shape decisions within the league. And then the article goes on to say one or two other things there. What are my thoughts on some of the things that he said? Well, let's take it bit by bit. Let's talk about the Bronny factor. Was LeBron a major reason that Bronny got drafted? 100%, so we can move on from that. Let's get into the JJ Redick factor. Was LeBron James a major component in terms of a reason being the JJ Redick got hired? I think it's safe to assume that he played a role, right? That if LeBron endorses a coach like that, chances are the team is going to look in his direction. So you have that as well. Now let's look at the part about LeBron controlling media narratives. I think in that instant, I think Enes Kanter is 100% on the money, and I don't think there's any speculation here because Enes Kanter isn't the only one that has said this. Stephen A. Smith, who's in the know, who's involved with the Vogue, he knows what's going on, and he says something like this. He's even given examples of how it works, how they try to control narratives by basically explaining once that essentially Kendrick Perkins was going out there on ESPN saying things that Clutch Sports and these guys didn't agree with, and they would privately contact him because of his views and try to get him to change his position on certain things. So we have many examples of this. Here's the larger problem with all of this about what Enes Kanter is talking about. I believe that, look, this stuff, this thing of this need, this fetish to control the media and control the narrative, I believe is having a detrimental impact on some NBA fans. Because some NBA fans, their brains are so fried and cooked that they cannot take or withstand another viewpoint that doesn't have to do with basically worshiping LeBron. And that's essentially what you're having. You have some people that say, for an example, Stephen A. Smith has disclosed some conversations that he's had with Rich Paul. Stephen A. Smith said, I have Michael Jordan as the greatest player of all time. Then he said, I have LeBron as the number 2 greatest player of all time. Do you know what Rich Paul said to Stephen A. Smith? I find that to be disrespectful. And that's where we are. So what happens is when you have other people that go out there and say, no, I think Kobe's better. No, I think Tim Duncan is better. No, I think Magic Johnson is better. I think this person is better. People just basically lose their minds. They essentially just lose their minds, and then you see emotions begin to run high, right? And there are many examples of LeBron fans not being able to curtail their emotions, and they just let their emotions get the best of them. I see them every day on YouTube, doing shows, cussing people out, and shouting and hollering and screaming out. We know them, right? And then sometimes they even go to the extent of now insulting other people. They'll insult your background and all. For LeBron, a person they will never know. A person that will never know that they exist. But they take it to those extremes. And for what? I don't know why. Because somebody said, oh, I don't have LeBron in my top 5. All of a sudden, we got a problem. Now, all of a sudden, you want to fight. Now, all of a sudden, we're implementing no-fly zones. Really? I blame these guys for it. They have fried people's brains to the point where now, if you don't have LeBron in your top 5, your top 2, your top 3, all of a sudden, we got to fight. Now it's a problem. This is the negative impact that it's having, unfortunately. And I think LeBron's power lies in the people he can control in media. The minute those people start coming out there and saying what they truly believe, the power dissipates, it disappears, it vanishes. That's what happens. His influence on you guys is through people he has out there going out there and preaching his gospel. The Nick Rice, the Shannon Sharps, the Kendrick Perkins at a certain point, and all of these other people in media that are associated with him in an overt or covert way. And then that's what happens, right? But luckily, what's happening now is that we have the independent sector, right? And then there are other people out there with different views and opinions that are not tied into any interest groups. The rest of some of these guys are just cronies, man. That's what we see in politics. And I think that's what we're talking about. And I don't think it's good for the business of sports. I think what is better is that these guys should have their views and other people should be allowed to have their views as well. As you guys know, Kobe Bryant is my favorite basketball player of all time, right? My favorite basketball player, I have him top 3 with MJ, Kareem, and of course Kobe Bryant, right? I pretty much witnessed him play his entire career, and I didn't see MJ in his prime because I wasn't old enough, but I saw Kobe in his prime, and I came to the conclusion that as I'm watching this guy play basketball, I'm like, I don't think there's any player better than this guy. Like, I just don't. I've seen Jordan, and I'm like, okay, I give Jordan the nod, but looking at him, I'm like, bro, who can play ball better than this dude, right? Who can play ball better than him? I think one of the things Kobe fans like about him, apart from his play and all of that, I think what we also like is his attitude, right? Kobe was a very forceful guy. He was very, what was it? He was very aggressive, and we liked his competitive fire, right? We liked the fact that Kobe was like, look, nah, we're not friends. We're not going to be fraternizing on the court. When we step on that court, we enemies. Kobe was even against the idea of going on vacation with other NBA players. He was. He's like, why are we going on vacation together? Like, it was just a mindset where it's like, it's me versus y'all. Now, if y'all want to fraternize and be doing it like that, fantastic. I remember Kobe saying, why would I go on vacation with other NBA players? And Kobe, based on the research that I know about him, his vacations essentially went like this. Him and his family, which I think is supposed to be. And then the rest of his summer, he was spent working out. He wouldn't go out. He was even against the idea of working out with other players because he wouldn't want them to see any of his moves. He wouldn't want them to see any of his moves, his work ethic, nothing. And I like that. It's us versus them F that. I support that. I support that. No, now it's if you with us, you with us. If you with them, you with them. There's nowhere all of us are gonna be competing. I'm gonna be sharing it for no. Forget all that. Maybe when I'm done, okay, then I give you the information. But in the heat of the battle, nah, man, you stay over there. We're gonna stay over here, right? That was that's how I view it. So what happened this morning? I came across an audio of Kobe Bryant, and I didn't hear this audio. I've never heard this clip before. And I was surprised, right? But in a very good way. It was basically Kobe in the heat of a battle against, what featured the Lakers versus the San Antonio Spurs, I believe in the 2002 playoffs. And there was a particular move where Shaq went up to try to dunk the ball on Tim Duncan, but I think he missed the dunk. They get back to the bench, and Kobe was like, put that BS, you know what, in the rim next. I was like, yes, that's the energy we talking about. So for those of you who didn't hear that clip or have never heard it, want to play it for you now. It's only like a 15-second, 14-second clip, and then we're going to come back and continue on the show. Take a listen to Kobe Bryant right here.
Kobe Bryant.
Hey, get that in your goddamn hole. Get that in your goddamn hole.
Can we just all agree that Kobe was a bad? Like, can we just agree? Like, how you not feeling that? How you not feeling that energy? Like, how you not feeling that? Like, I don't know, man. Maybe when you're a Kobe fan, MJ fan, you just got to have a certain type of, I don't know how you're not feeling that. Like, I'm all about that, right? Matter of fact, let me read some of the things that people were saying to under the comments. One person said, Kobe owned the Spurs so much. Another person said, Kobe the MFN GOAT. LMAO. Somebody said, LeBron couldn't say this to Shaq. Another person said, Kobe was just different. Another person said, real dog. Another person said, they don't make them like this anymore. Another person said, people don't know Kobe was a real Spurs, you know what, not Shaq. Another person said, pure dog. One other person said, Kobe was a monster. Another person said, I've never seen Shaq get stopped before. One final person said, I didn't know Kobe talked like this, right? That's what that person said, right? So you heard what the people who saw the video had to say. Now here's some facts for you guys as it pertains to that series. Shaq, as you would have it, the Lakers actually won that series 3-1. And Shaq actually carried Kobe throughout that. You know, I'm a huge Kobe fan, but, you know, Shaq was a monster, man. And a lot of people say Shaq carried Kobe, and I think in this series he did. Let me give you some of Shaq's numbers. Shaq, that series, averaged 21.4 points per game, 12.2 rebounds, 3.4 assists. Then Kobe, who got carried, he averaged 26.2 points per game, 5.4 rebounds, 4.8 assists. But, of course, I know he probably did that with some very inefficient shooting, because that's probably was going to be the knock on him. Well, Shaq shot 44.7% from the field. Kobe Bryant shot 45.5%, being predominantly a jump shooter. So Shaq had some pretty big bags on his back carrying Kobe Bryant throughout that series, man. You know, it is what it is. You know, it is what it is when, you know, when you're carrying a guy like Kobe. Like, cut it out. Like, let's just cut it out, right? Listen, this is just another example, man. Like, that's what I like. That is the energy that I like. Kobe was a monster, man. Kobe was a monster. He was. And there's so many reasons why I have him as the third greatest player of all time. Maybe that was a Freudian slip. I can't even say the word. Freudian slip. It's one of the reasons I got him in my top 3. And I have so many cases. Kobe Bryant beat more 50-win teams than Magic Johnson did in the playoffs in his entire career. Kobe did it in 2 seasons. In 2 playoff runs, he beat more 50-win teams than Magic Johnson did in his entire career. Kobe Bryant led a decade in scoring. He also has the most all-defensive selections for a guard ever. Kobe got selected to an all-defensive team 12 times. 12. And then on top of that, he led the league in scoring 2 times as well. And then you can go into his bag and all of that. There was nothing like him. I think the greatest offensive player since Michael Jordan was Kobe Bryant. And Kobe's scoring was more impressive than anybody I'm seeing today. More impressive than Luka Doncic, more impressive than Joel Embiid, more impressive than all of these guys. And I'll tell you why. Number one, possessions per game. There were less possessions per game. Number two, average score per game. When Kobe was scoring 35 a game, the average score per NBA game, I think was 96, 97 points per game. What's the average score in an NBA game today? 112, 114 points per game? So there were less possessions. There was stingier defense. There was less space. And he was still shooting with 45% from the. Do you know how hard it is to shoot 45% from the field with that spacing as a jump shooter? Do you know how hard that is to do? Do you understand how hard that is to do? Kobe wasn't a driver, right? Kobe shot like 42% outside of 7 feet. Unlike LeBron, whose career average is 37% outside of 10 feet or 7 feet. 37%. Kobe was predominantly a jump, and if you watched his game, you would know that. That's why sometimes his stats don't tell you all the that's what Kenny Smith said one day on what's the show? Inside the NBA. He said there are 3 types of lies. They're lies, damn lies, and then there's stats. Why? Because if you're just relying upon stats and you don't have any context, the stats are useless. Because you can use stats to tell you anything. Like that guy who did the show talking about the article talking about the Michael Jordan steals were inflated and all of that stuff. He went on ESPN and came up with some type of, report that said that Kobe Bryant was the 5th less clutch player in the NBA, and then Dirk Nowitzki was more clutch than him, and then he had some bench player or whoever it was, I think Rudy Gay, as the most clutch player in the NBA. So and then Tracy McGrady asked him, so you would take Rudy Gay over Kobe Bryant? Like, is that what you're saying? He's like, no, well, that's not what I'm saying. Like, but that's what your stats say. He's like, oh, well, I guess I ran out of a narrative. And then they threw his ass off the screen. So to me, man, that's Kobe for you, man. That's the energy I like. Some people may not like it. Some people may think, oh, it's too abrasive or whatever. That is the energy I like. That's why Kobe fans and MJ fans get along. That's why they get along. That's what I want. I want a nasty competitor. Forget all about I'm going to do it the right way. At the end of a game, I'll shake your hand, whatever. If you beat me, whatever. But in the throes of battle, forget all of those niceties.